Hey, what's up, guys? It's Chris here with Prestige Auto. Today we've got this Rogue here in the garage. We're going to be changing out the wheel bearing today. It's kind of making a roaring sound whenever you're driving. This is a 2011, but the process is the same on almost all vehicles. It's about the same process. Let's see. So the wheel bearing looks like this. We've got a new one here. I picked this up from AutoZone, and it was about, I think it was like 40 bucks. So this is what your new one looks like. And what happens is the bearings inside just get dried out, get worn out, and sometimes they'll get wobbly or they'll just make a grinding sound. So we're going to get our tools together, and I'm going to show you guys how to change this thing. Alright, we've got our jacked up and on a jack stand there. We're going to go ahead and take this wheel off. It looks like it's a 21 millimeter. Alright, so let's get this wheel off and we'll see what's next. Alright, so we've got the wheel off. Now, a couple things we're going to have to do is we need to take this brake caliper off so we can take the rotor off. To get the brake caliper off, there are, right here is one right there, and there's going to be one down below too. See it down there? Yeah, there it is. Alright, we'll need to take both of those off, and then this caliper will just slide right off. We'll take a bungee or something and bungee it up here to hold it up and out of the way, and then your rotor should just come right off. So let's get that off and get it set up. Alright, we got that caliper off and the rotor. You can see there was one there and one there, and I think it was, let me see, it was a 19 millimeter is the size of the bolt that was in the back of the caliper. Alright, and then the rotor just came right off. I did have to tap it a little bit with the hammer, just a little tap on the back side of it, and it popped off. Alright, so a couple things we're going to have to do is this line going to your speed sensor, your ABS sensor. It just kind of pops out of these little rubber grommets right here. Just kind of wiggle it and jiggle it, and it'll pop off there and there. And then around on the back side of it, it's a 10 millimeter. You'll want to take that out and be very gentle and pry that thing out so that it doesn't break. Alright, let's see. We need to take off these two, and they are a 21 millimeter. You'll have to put a ratchet on one side and one on the other, but it's 21 millimeter. Take those two off, and they're pretty easy. Before you do that though, you'll want to come down here, pull out this pin and pull off this little cover and take this center nut off here. It is, let's see, it is a 1 1/4 to fit that there, to take that off. So we'll start with that. We'll take that off, take off this nut here, then we'll go up here and disassemble this stuff, take these off, and then we'll be able to swing this knuckle down, because right here's your wheel bearing, but it's held in by 4 bolts. You can see one there, there, and 2 on the bottom. You got to get to them from the inside, but we can't because this CV axle here is in the way. So that's the point of taking off this nut, to push this CV axle through to give us access to those 4 bolts. So let's get to it and take all that crap off. Alright guys, so we took those 2 bolts out up here I showed you, and this just kind of swings down now and comes free. And this is the that ABS line, or the speed sensor going over there. I haven't taken it out yet because it's kind of a bee to get out. We'll get to that in a minute. But the CV axle, we got that nut off. You should be able to just kind of jiggle this around and grab this right here and just pop it out of its socket. It is splined, so you can see on the new one there, it's splined. We will just slide that out and get to the 4 bolts. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're right around the back here. And get this flashlight so you can see up in there. Okay, but you can see there's let's see, one right there, and then the other 2 are up top. But we got to pull this thing out and just set it to the side to get to those. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we slid that out. It was easy peasy. You can see there your 4 bolts in there that's holding that on. So in my experience with these, this ABS sensor is pretty hard to get out without breaking. There's a 10mm bolt on it right there, and if you're lucky you can spray maybe some lube in there and kind of jiggle that thing out, because that thing sits like, here's the new one. So that sensor, let me see, right here, that sensor sits down in that groove right there. So when you take those 4 bolts off this one and just try to jerk this out, it's going to snap your sensor off because it's down in there. So you can take that bolt out and try to jiggle that thing out. Hopefully you don't break it, because they're like $150. What I did in the past is, from the inside there, I'll try to get a screwdriver on the old one and pry this and pop that off, so that then I can slide this out without damaging the old one. Once you get the old one out, up in there where it's coming in, see, I'll take a screwdriver and like right in here try to pop this ring out right here, so you can slide that out without damaging the sensor. Then in order to get that one on, it's much easier to get out once this is off. You can take like a little screwdriver in there and just tap it, back it out, so you can put the new one in and then push that back in. I'll show you guys all that process once we get to that, but for now I'm going to try to get a screwdriver and go ahead and pry that little back plate off there. Again, it is this back plate right here. I'm going to try to get like right in here is a good spot, and just try to pop that thing off. Okay, so here's one that I've done in the past. Here's this back ring right here, and what I mean by that is, see that gap right there? It sets in right here. You can pop that off like that. Just pop it off, and when it comes off, then you'll be able to slide that thing out without damaging your sensor. So let's try to pop this little ring off of this one. So we got that plate off. Now you can see I'm going to point right here. That is your sensor right there. So if we'd have just left that plate on, took those 4 bolts out and pulled that thing out, it would snap the end of your sensor off. So now that we got that off, now we can take these bolts off, slide this thing out, and what I'll do is I'll take the end of the screwdriver here and I'll just tap it out a little bit so we can slide in the new one, and we'll clean that thing off a little bit. So let's go ahead and get these bolts off here and get this thing off. Now also, whenever this thing comes off, this heat shield is going to come off with it. So just make sure that you put it back on in between your bearing and this knuckle here in the same way that it came off. Alright, so let's get that thing off. Alright guys, she's out. That was pretty easy. So we took those 4 bolts off on the inside like I told you, and let's see, I think it was a 17mm is what it was to get those off. So that's what it's going to be to put it back on. Alright, when we took those 4 off, it is going to be up in there. So I just took my hammer and just tapped it from the back. Be careful not to hit your sensor. You can see it hanging out there. Just tap on the center of it and it'll pop out. Watch your toes, because I had one drop on my toe one time. So, all right. Keep up your shield. Make sure it goes back on the same way as it came off. Let's get the new one there and put it all back together. Okay, I do want to show you guys this process just in case you're having trouble with it. So we're going to go ahead and take this 10mm out here, and I'm going to show you guys how we get that thing out. You can see it right here sticking out. So really the easiest thing is just to take that 10mm out right there, and then I'm going to take this socket and just tap it gently and back it out enough so that it's flush, and we can slide that new bearing in there. So let's go ahead and take that off and slide that thing back. I'm also going to spray some WD-40 up in there too, just to lube it up a little bit. So you do that too. Alright, that came out pretty easy. So right there was the bolt. We took it out and just tapped it and it slid out. Now we can slide the new one in there without damaging it. We'll get it in and put in our 4 bolts and then push that back in. Actually, while it's out, you want to go ahead and pull it out and wipe it off with a paper towel. Put it back in, bolt it back down. Alright, let's do that. Well, alright, we got that son of a gun put all back together. It's a pretty easy job. Quick rundown of it was the 2 bolts there to pull off the caliper, slide off your rotor. Then you're going to want to take off this center nut here, so that you'll be able to slide out your CV axle. But you won't be able to do that until you take off these 2 right here. We'll take those 2 off, and then this will slide down and you'll be able to push that CV axle out. Once you get it out, remember there's 4 bolts back there. We'll take those off, but remember to pry that ring off so that you don't damage your speed sensor there. All right, and so we put on that new wheel bearing. We got to make sure we put our dust cover back on in between the wheel bearing and the hub there. All right, now that we've got it all back together, we're just going to put this wheel back on, put the hubcap back on, and take it for a test drive and make sure she sounds good. So let's put this wheel on. Alright guys, just got that all wrapped up. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that helped you change out your wheel bearing. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching.